has been over a month since the release of Gangnam-chan, and yes, I can't believe it either. Time is flying, and now that people finally have their hands on him and they've used him on the battlefield, the logical next question is, what is next? So today we're going to try to predict the next commander release, and surprise surprise, it's going to be infantry. And I just gotta say, my predictions for cavalry were shockingly close with one obvious mistake. So let's see if we can do that again and figure out if the next infantry commander is going to be good or not. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Tiger came to say hi. She said you guys should definitely leave a like on the video, and maybe I'll give her some treats later. She just wants some cheek scratches. Now, as you guys know, I am a sponsored partner created with Rise of Kingdoms, so if you want more rock content, consider subscribing down below. We are actually surprisingly close to 100,000 subscribers, and I know a lot of you guys might think you're subscribed, but you're actually not. Double check down below. Now, real quick, apparently I was nominated by you guys for Celebrity of the Year over on the Rise of Kingdoms Governor of the Year awards. If you click on governors at the top here, it'll bring you down to these community award categories, and under Celebrity of the Year we can see that we've got a bunch of great creators here, or really just community members in general. And the community managers for Rock asked me if I wanted to like be a part of the whole creator thing, and I told them I really didn't mind if I wasn't involved this year because I was involved last year, and it would be great if they shined the spotlight on some new people. That way it's not all just the same people every year. But despite that, I still somehow ended up nominated, so I really do appreciate it. If you want to vote for me, you can vote for me every day from now until December 23rd. I'll put the link in the description and maybe the pinned comment below if I remember. And while you're here, go through and take a look at all the other different award categories and everybody who's nominated. I'm kind of surprised Makot didn't find himself in the Celebrity of the Year section, but anyway, let's jump right in here. And I wanted to start with my cavalry predictions from last time, right? If we take a look, I posted this video on September 1st, and this was before we got the reveal for the new calves and before we got the reveal for the upcoming KVK story. And as you can see here, I predicted we would get a garrison commander and an open field commander, and I also said that if the open field commander was AoE, they would have upwards of 2800 damage factor to 3 targets. If they were single target, they would have 3000 damage factor to a single target. And then for the garrison, I also assumed between 2800 and 3000 for a single target. Now, the obvious mistake here was that you just have to flip the rally and garrison commanders, because it ended up being the case that we did in fact get a 3 target AoE 2800 combo damage commander. It just wasn't the field commander, it was the garrison commander David. And likewise, the single target damage commander was Gangnam-chan, who was the field commander, and surprise surprise, he hits for 3000 to 1 target. So I was right in the money there with just that one thing. But in my defense, I also didn't know what the upcoming KVK commanders were, and I also said this in that video: hopefully if the upcoming combo commander for open field is single target damage, then hopefully the sort of special KVK story commander is AoE, right? That would be absolutely gorgeous. I would love that. I think everyone would love to get 2 new cav open field commanders plus a garrison, right? Like that would be fantastic. And as we know, we did get our hands on Achilles, who is an AoE cavalry commander that we got for the Song of Troy KVK. So I feel like my predictions for cavalry were shockingly similar to what we actually got. So with that being said, what do I think we're going to be getting for the upcoming infantry release? Well, first of all, how do I even know that it's infantry? Well, if you guys have been a fan of the channel for a long time, you'll know that I've been keeping track of the commander releases for a very long time, since the very beginning of the game, because I've been playing since the very beginning of the game. And we do see a pretty clear trend here ever since Genghis Khan and Saladin came into the game all the way back in 2019. We see cavalry, infantry, archers, and leadership, then cavalry, infantry, archers, leadership, cavalry, infantry, archers, leadership. That's been the trend for years now. And so if we take a look here, we had Arthur, that was cavalry, infantry, archers, leadership. Then we got the KVK story commanders, which throws a wrench in there, but then we start the cycle all up over again with the 11th generation. So we have cavalry and then infantry. Okay, so that's the trend. Beyond that, Rise of Kingdoms just straight out said that the next commander release is going to be infantry. They posted this on their social media pages 7 weeks ago. On October 26th, they said that the cavalry commander, which they're referring to Gangnam-chan and David, they said that next gen cav commander is going to be coming in late November. We did see Gangnam-chan come around mid-November, and then we see that they announced infantry is coming next in January of 2026. Okay, so we don't even have to guess anymore. We just know exactly what's coming next and when it's going to come. Okay, so we know the wheel commander is going to be a versatility commander. You know it, I know it, everyone knows that that's been the case. I mean, just look at this. Okay, no one uses the second talent tree, which by the way, I feel like it's kind of a missed opportunity. They could definitely add some more strategy if the yellow talent tree was somewhat viable for open field. But anyway, the wheel commander is pretty much always the open field versatility commander. And when are we going to see this commander? Well, realistically, I think the end of January makes the most sense, because if we take a look here, one of the things that we know is that typically when we look at the actual release cycle, right? So when I say that, I mean the mightiest governor and wheel commanders, we see a clear trend. It's either 56 days after the last one, 70 days after the last one, or 84 days after the last one. That's always been the trend for many years now. There's been very few exceptions going back to like Amanator and Gilgamesh, but realistically the only disruptions here have mainly come from them introducing event commanders, basically KVK commanders or commanders in an event like with King Arthur, for example, right? That's why you see it was 84 days between Subutai and the previous MGE commander, but only 23 days between the actual open field wheel commanders, right? Because they throw them in an event. Okay, so that is my guess, because one, they said they're coming in January, and two, another thing I have to mention here is that they could easily do the same thing they did with Gangnam Chan, where they just throw them in like a bundle in the middle of January, and then they actually don't show up in the wheel until like the second week of February or something like that, right? That's very possible as well. We saw them do that with Gangnam Chan. We also saw them do that with Achilles, and then I also think Emperor Qin had a special event as well. But this is something that they did with King Arthur as well. They did this with Ragnar Prime. This has been something that they have been doing more frequently, and so I can easily see it being the case that, again, the wheel might not come until February, but the event will come in the middle of January. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm going to leave this at the 31st of January because that's right in the middle of both of those things. But this commander is coming up quick. I mean, literally at most 6 weeks away, right? Probably less than that. And we should be hearing more about those commanders very soon, if we're being honest. Usually we hear about these new commanders about 3 to 4 weeks out from their actual release. So we should know more about these commanders soon, but that is my prediction for these commanders, when they're coming and what they're going to be. Now, when it comes to the mightiest governor event commander, we have to ask ourselves, will it be rally or will it be garrison? And again, if you've watched these videos for a while now, you'll know that there is a trend with these releases, right? It typically is, you know, if we see an infantry garrison like Gorgo, then the next mightiest governor for infantry is going to be a rally commander, and that's what we got for Scipio Aemilianus. And then the following should be a garrison, which is exactly what we got with Tokugawa. And so if we follow that trend logically here, we will see that this will probably be a rally commander. Okay, so we are likely going to see a rally infantry commander coming up soon, which I think is going to be kind of nuts. Hopefully it's something good. Now, when it comes to the third talent tree, the blue talent tree, I think the knee-jerk reaction here is that this is going to be a pair of smite commanders, because that has been the trend for the last couple of releases. Gorgo and Liu Che kind of count because they were the first smite damage commanders, even though they didn't have the smite talent tree. But then we saw William Wallace and Scipio Aemilianus come out, those were smite. Then we saw Tokugawa and Baiji come out, those were smite. I think if we follow that trend, we can assume that infantry are all in on smite damage, and so getting the smite tree is pretty expected. But I also don't want people to assume that will always be the case, right? Like, just because a commander deals smite damage does not mean that they will always have the smite tree, in the same way that for years every commander only dealt skill damage, or they had some sort of like buff or debuff or healing on the active skill, but they would have the defense tree, the attack tree, the mobility tree, whatever, right? And so for years we had the case where, yes, they were skill damage, but they didn't necessarily have the skill tree. And so in the same vein as that, I think it's very possible that one day we will get a smite damage infantry that does not have the smite tree, right? I think recently we've been getting a lot of smite tree commanders, and for cavalry we've gotten a lot of combo tree commanders, because these are the latest talent trees, and because it's such a new damage type, the developers want to make sure that there are enough commanders out there to choose from with that specific talent tree. But once they feel like there's enough commanders with the smite tree and with the combo tree, they're going to start to probably rebalance things and say, okay, well, let's release this commander and we'll make them do this special thing, and instead of having the smite tree, they'll have the defense tree, or they'll have the whatever tree. Now, I don't think we've reached that threshold yet. There still aren't that many open field smite damage tree commanders, right? right? We literally have William Wallace and Bai Chi. That is it. Those are the only two Smite Tree open field commanders. The rest were Rally and Garrison. So having only two, it's like, is that enough? Maybe, maybe not. I think Smite Tree is the most probable here, but just keep in mind that it doesn't have to be, right? Like there, at some point we will get a commander that is smite damage that doesn't have the Smite Tree. Do not be surprised when that happens. I mean, it would just be boring, right? Like, wouldn't it just be boring if every infantry release was Smite Tree and every cavalry release was combo tree? It's just dumb. Like, what's the point in even having a talent tree anymore, right? Like, just give them those stats and just that's it. Okay, so now that we know kind of when they're coming and what to expect with a rally commander, let's try to figure out, you know, are these going to be single target damage commanders? Are they going to be AoE? How much damage factor might we expect from these commanders? And I think the one thing that people are talking the most about is, of course, the open field commander, right? Everyone wants to know, is this going to be a must-have commander? Because we just got a bunch of new commanders, right? We just got Achilles, who's really, really strong. We have Gangnam Chan, which, spoiler alert, I did actually end up maxing him for my recent zone fights. He is much better than Hua. I was worried that he would only be a little bit better. No, he is significantly more tanky. His damage output is not that great, but it's not really why you get him. You get him to keep Achilles alive. That's really like the whole point of Gangnam Chan as far as I'm concerned, and they are shockingly tanky together. Like, the healing on Gangnam Chan is broken, and I kind of pointed that out in a video where I talked about that. I assumed that it would be. I was correct about that. I just didn't know if it would like make it worth investing in, but frankly, the Hua Joan is just not a pairing that I feel like is you're kind of just putting your troops in the hospital with that march at this point, unfortunately, right? I know some people use it to great effect, but I'm just not seeing it. I haven't seen it in many KVKs for me personally, so I've given up on that march. It's in the graveyard. We've moved on. Okay, so what can we expect here, right? Well, let's look back at the last infantry release, right? We got Bai Chi, who is a 5 target 2400 AoE with really just overwhelming damage, right? Like, that's really Bai Chi. They just cranked up the damage meter. They didn't do anything special with him. They made him sort of like get stronger as he gets weaker, but that mechanic is cool. I don't love it. Some people love it. I'm not a big fan of that. I like my commanders to hit hard out of the gate and have other things that they're doing besides trying to like scrape together their own kill points as they go down, right? But anyway, that's what we saw with Bai Chi. Now, what did we see before that? Well, before that we had the KVK story Ragnar Prime, who was also AoE, and then before that we had William Wallace. All right, now really we could look at the trend. Like, if we're just looking at Mightiest Governor and Wheel commanders, we could say, okay, Liu Che was AoE, William Wallace was single target, Bai Chi was AoE, the next commander will be single target. And honestly, I do think that it is more likely the upcoming commander is single target damage, and here's why. Not only was Bai Chi AoE, but if you factor in the special KVK story Ragnar Prime, that's 2 AoE infantry commanders back to back, right? We got one in November of last year, we got one in May of this year. And so, like, are they going to do a third infantry release that's also AoE? Maybe, right? Maybe if they feel like they need it, but personally I don't see that happening. I mean, really anything is possible. They could do whatever they want. I think this infantry commander is going to be single target damage. Really, I do. I think that is the most logical thing. And when I think about like, okay, well, what did they do with Gangnam Chan, right? Because cavalry were in a similar situation, right? We saw single target with Belisarius Prime, then we saw AoE with King Arthur, then we saw AoE again with Achilles, and then we saw single target damage with Gangnam Chan, right? And when we look at what does Gangnam Chan do, he has great single target damage, but when you zoom out and you compare his damage to all the AoE commanders, his damage is it's not great, right? And so when we think about what was the strategy there, well, I think the strategy that Rise of Kingdoms has been taking ever since they actually changed crystal tech, I think the strategy they've been going with is trying to figure out ways where commanders can sort of be more sustainable in the field with the high power creep of the current meta, right? If you compare today's power creep and today's meta to what it was in 2022 or 2023, there's just way more damage on the board in every aspect. It comes from armaments and inscriptions, it comes from stronger commanders, it comes from people pushing the power of their own equipment and their own commanders on the field, right? And so when it comes to damage output, I feel like Rise of Kingdoms and the developers have realized that they have pushed damage output so far without actually compensating that when it comes to tankiness, right? And I think that's part of the reason why they changed the crystal tech, and they also nerfed the KVK buff, right? You get 30% all damage now instead of 40, I believe is what it was before. And furthermore, when you look at Gangnam Chan and just how tanky he is, I mean, we've never really seen a cavalry commander as tanky as Gangnam Chan when it comes to open field PvP. I mean, we've had Nevsky was decent, Hua was decent, but that was mainly because of their stat distribution. It had nothing to do with their actual kit or their mechanics or anything like that. Here with Gangnam Chan, we see not only does he have tanky stats, but he has a tanky mechanic in the fact that he heals himself without increasing his sev wounds, right? Which is like, that kind of solves the biggest problem that we had with healing to begin with. And so when we look at the next infantry commander, it's like, are they going to push damage output again, right? Is this going to be the Emperor Qin for infantry? Well, you know, I don't think so. I mean, do infantry need an Emperor Qin level commander? I think it would be great, but I don't know if they need one. Like, Baichi Liu Che still performs really, really well if we're being honest with ourselves. And so I think what they might do is have a infantry commander that is single target damage and has respectable single target damage, but also leans into the tankiness, right? They lean in, and I mean, it's infantry, right? They're supposed to be the most tanky thing on the field. It shouldn't be the case that Gangnam Chan is outliving your infantry, right? Like, I mean, I guess there's no reason they couldn't, but when we think about infantry from a game balance perspective, or from even a lore perspective or a logical perspective, like, the idea is that these are the heavy armor wearing warriors that are the garrison of the castle. These are the defense. These are the I mean, even if you look at like the actual base stats of the units, it makes sense from that perspective, right? And historically, they've always been the garrison meta. It's always been infantry, with some exceptions that come in there, but the developers seem to be hinting towards going more towards a tanky meta. And when we combine that with the fact that infantry just got 2 AoE commanders in a row, I think it would make sense that this infantry commander is more similar to Gangnam Chan than it is to Emperor Qin or Achilles or something like that, right? And is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if they added healing there. That would be a little bit redundant, to be honest with you, to have like back-to-back healing commanders. I think they could do it, and really I think the healing on Gangnam Chan, like, they finally figured it out. They have finally figured out how to make healing meta, right? Like, realistically, it's great with the way that they've done that. So I would like to see that on infantry, especially because infantry with Richard has been kind of known to be the healing, you know, with Zenobia as well, the healing troop type, right? Obviously we've got Shajar, and now there's many other healers, but it would make sense for infantry to get a meta healing commander for the field. But also, you know, again, it would be a little redundant. So would it be shocking if we got a shielding commander, right? Like mighty shield infantry? I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Especially if we're going towards a more tanky meta. And so, you know, if we're going to look at a single target damage tanky infantry commander, I'm thinking it's more going to be like a William Wallace 2.0, really, where, you know, William Wallace had a lot of attack stats. I think this commander is going to have a lot of health stats, because first of all, the developers know infantry already have tons of defense. We don't need more defense. Having an infantry commander have a ton of defense is not really giving them what they need to be tanky in the field anyway. And really, we haven't seen a ton of health on infantry open field commanders lately anyway either, right? So I think they're kind of overdue. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. When it comes to damage factor here, again, I think if it's single target, I don't see why it would be anything less than, you know, 2,800 on the low end, but 3,000 more realistically, I think, is where we're at now. I think, again, when it comes to single target damage, it's like, I don't know, it's just, that's already too low when it comes to like damage output in the current field meta. So really anything less than that would be kind of a bummer. But again, 2,800 is the low end, 3,000 I think is more realistic. And then again, I'm hoping that they're tanky, but also that they are some sort of supportive, right? I would love for them to do like AoE mighty shields that actually matter, that actually mean something, unlike, you know, William Wallace. I want them to be big shields or effective shields or something along those lines, right? I think that would make a lot of sense. So that's my prediction there. All right, when it comes to the rally commander, we have not seen an ounce of AoE on a rally infantry commander since 2020 with Herald coming out. But as we see from the garrison on cavalry, they really can do whatever they want, right? Like, there's just, because it's been the trend for 5 years doesn't mean they can't just break it now. And so, you know, I think again, single target for the garrison is more likely, but could we see AoE? Absolutely, right? There's no reason why we couldn't. Again, if it's single target, I'm hoping it's at least 3,000 if not more, with some sort of buff to itself or something like that. And if it's AoE, I would love to see a similar damage factor, or 2,800, just like we see with David IV, right? I think that that would be most likely, or maybe they'll push it a little bit lower, like 2,600 for 3 targets, and then they add like a super powerful powerful buff and he's super tanky, right? Really, we've seen a lot of single target damage rallies lately, and I would love to see a little bit more AoE, right? Like punish people standing close to that garrison. Let's actually see what happens if we have an AoE infantry commander. If it is AoE and it's super tanky, I think it could be field viable unless they do the same thing that they've been doing, like with Scipio Aemilianus and like with Subutai and like with Shapur, right? They are only getting a majority of their stats if they are a rally, which kind of sucks, right? I kind of hate that. So, you know, it could be 2,600, it could be 3,000, depending on whether it's AoE or not. I'm gonna guess it's single target because that's been the trend, but again, they can really do whatever they want. With that being said, you know, is this something worth saving for, right? Especially if you are a infantry main. Well, first of all, the David garrison seemed to be pretty good, and I do think that this upcoming infantry commander will be just generally built to counter David, right? That, I mean, really, that's kind of been the trend for a long time now, right? And so I would not be surprised if we saw that, and therefore I wouldn't be surprised if you are an infantry rally leader. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a must-have commander for you. Okay, when it comes to the field commander, however, will this be a must-have open field commander? The question is up in the air. It's anybody's guess. I do think that ever since Emperor Qin, we have seen a noticeable shift in the meta. Emperor Qin was kind of like the peak of the open field damage per second power creep meta, and now we're kind of maybe going down this path of more modest damage and maybe a little bit more tankiness, right? And so again, it's just going to come down to, you know, does he keep your Bai Chi in the field for an insane amount of time? If so, then maybe that's a must-have commander, right? But again, if you're looking for the Emperor Qin of infantry, I don't know if this is going to be it, and if that is your prerequisite to making him a must-have commander, well, then he's probably not going to be a must-have commander. Even Gangnam Chan, who is clearly an improvement for cavalry, and his tankiness is insane, is he a must-have cav? If you're running one cavalry, probably not, right? Like, even though he's so good, probably not. So again, same thing with infantry, you know, is this upcoming infantry commander going to be a must-have commander if it's single target damage and tanky? Probably not, right? You'll probably keep running Bai Chi with Liu Che, right? That's my guess here, but again, we don't know anything about these commanders yet. I'm just going based off of what I think we could be getting here, and really I think this could be shaping up to be sort of a moderate or average infantry release, right? Like if we look back at the 9th generation, that generation of commanders was kind of lukewarm, or quite frankly kind of bad, if we're being honest with ourselves. Like Belisarius Prime, William Wallace, Shajar, none of these are like serious contenders for open field meta. I know William Wallace is kind of the only one there that sees some play. I know Shajar sees some play as well with some archer mains, but really like the whole 9th generation, you could have skipped it and you wouldn't have really missed out on anything very important. The 10th generation has a good chunk of must-have commanders. I feel like Emperor Qin, Arthur, Achilles, and even Bai Chi, these are all super good commanders. And so when we look at the 11th generation, you know, is this a must-have commander? I think it's leaning towards not as much as the last generation. That's my best guess here. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments. Now, when it comes to what commanders could we see, like who could they actually be? I think, you know, obviously Tzu Prime is like the number one that people want the most. The thing about Tzu Prime though is that I think I'm putting my bet on this. I think he's going to be a special KVK story commander. It just makes the most sense, right? I think there's going to be a special KVK story that focuses on ancient China, and I think that Sun Tzu is going to be a key figure in that story, and this will give the developers a reason to introduce Tzu Prime into the game. And not only that, it will give them a reason to maybe make him a universal commander that works for all troop types, because this is a commander that I think is so beloved by the community. Everybody wants him, whether you're an infantry main or not. And so I think it would be kind of a bummer to take such a beloved commander and then just lock him up to just infantry, right? So, you know, I think, could it be Tzu Prime? Yes. And realistically, we haven't seen a Prime commander in a very long time. Literally the last Prime commander we saw was Ragnar Prime, so it's been over a year. The entire 10th generation did not have a Prime commander at all, which is kind of insane. So the 11th generation I think is due for a Prime commander, so I wouldn't be surprised if Tzu Prime was that commander. But by the same token, if I were to bet, I would say Tzu Prime will probably be a special KVK commander. That's my guess. I think he'll either be like Ragnar Prime, where he's infantry but he's universal in the KVK, or vice versa, he is just a leadership commander commander, kind of like Hector, right? So I don't necessarily think it will be Sun Tzu Prime. I do think that there is an increased chance that we get somebody like Oda Nobunaga or Vlad the Impaler. I feel like those are really kind of inevitable almost at this point. I know Hammurabi and Hattori Hanzo are very highly requested commanders as well. There's also King Baldwin IV. I've mentioned a lot of these commanders quite a bit. I think those are all like valid potential commanders. The other thing too is if we are going to see a prime commander, I think Leonidas Prime is very much overdue. I think they've made a lot of promotional artwork with Leonidas as a commander. They've even gone in and changed his design here. He's one of the few commanders that just got another design, and there's no reason for that necessarily other than the fact that he is a beloved commander, right? Like he's Leonidas, he's in the movies, you know what I mean? Like it's Leonidas, he's him, you know? And so if they wanted to do him right, you know, if they're gonna basically use him for marketing and use him for all these things and people love the design and they love the commander, well, it would make sense that they would like give him a prime version and actually make him feel viable, right? Because he's just very much not, even with his relic. So I think a Leonidas Prime would not be shocking in the slightest, in my opinion, and I think we are actually frankly kind of overdue for one, especially if this is going to be a more tanky commander that is like not a must-have commander. I think Leonidas might fit that bill. When it comes to other prime commanders, I mean, we already have a lot of these commanders as prime versions. I think Kusunoki Prime might come eventually, same thing with Pelagius Prime, but I don't know if these are like the most beloved epics. I think Kusunoki Prime could be cool, especially because he's in the animations for a lot of the promotional art. But if I were a betting man, I would say that Leonidas has the highest probability of getting a prime version behind Sun Tzu, right? And I already gave my predictions for Sun Tzu and when we're going to get Sun Tzu Prime. I think Leonidas Prime makes a lot more sense for just a regular release. So that's my 2 cents on sort of who these commanders could be and what types of damage they're going to deal, whether they're AoE single target or whatever. And we also talked about when they're actually going to land in the game. So guys, if you made it to the end of the video, consider dropping a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel a ton. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video. Comment down below your thoughts on what the next infantry commanders are going to be and if they're going to be must-have commanders. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.